Hey, so today I'm going to be talking about the Season 29 changes for Alliance War, and at the end of the video we will be going over my Season 28 overview for Alliance War. I just felt like pairing these two in a video together because I didn't really want to make a video of just one, so pairing two makes it a bit easier for me. And the first thing up, solo event update. New tier for Thronebreakers. Whatever. I don't really care about the golden loyalty or crystal shards here. What I do like is they're adding Alliance War boosts and Alliance War health and potions and team revives. This is really nice. It's going to make Alliance War cheaper. It really depends how much boosts and potions they're adding. I hope they make it enough to actually, make a significant difference, though I find it kind of unlikely that they're going to do that. But I'm super excited that they're actually adding this as like a grindable thing now, so that gives me a lot of hope that they're going to start adding this as just regular rewards, and I'm excited for that. Now on to the tactics. Expert map tactics, it's locked to these two. Slow your roll. This is a cool attack tactic that I think is stupidly paired with Untouchables. Untouchables punishes you for using slow, and this gives you slow. This is stupid. I love the idea of slow your roll, giving a lot of champions slow. If there were a bunch of evade and unstoppable defenders, I think this is cool to make certain armor up champions get a bunch of use again. I think this would be really, really cool. The issue is Untouchables it makes it so this is kind of nothing because you are punished for using slow, so what's the point of this? Untouchables as a defense tactic on the current map, I think, is also kind of a nothing tactic. I'm really not a fan of Untouchables, and it continues to benefit a lot of the mainstay attackers anyway, and not really changing up much in terms of planning or gameplay. Not a fan of Untouchables. And yeah, now for the map changes. Node 6, this is a stupid node. What this is doing is giving them armor ups, giving them shocks when you have armor ups, and putting return policy here. The issue with this is it's again just feeding super meta attackers like Doom, Corvus, Ghost, Magneto. They're all going to just absolutely shine here, and this node is just not adding a whole lot. The other issue is static defense. The shocks here, they barely do anything, so if you can use someone with ability accuracy like Archangel, you will probably make it out alive here as well. So this node is not that interesting. And then on node 15. What you have here now is armor every time they throw a special, and with Power Focus 2 they'll be getting a lot of specials to throw. I get the idea of that. The issue is these armor up buffs are not potent enough to matter, and there's no armor break immune node, or anything like that. I think if they added an armor break immune instead of Mystic Ward, or instead of Hurt Locker, that would have been kind of neat. I would have liked that. But they didn't. They made it super boring, so you can just use basically any of the normal armor counters here and you'll be perfectly fine. Node 32, I like this a lot. It's punishing Horseman, it's punishing Magneto, it's punishing Warlock, it's punishing Omega Red, it's punishing G99 ramp-ups. It's definitely going to change what's being planned here. I like that a lot. And yeah, I don't think it will be anything hard or anything ridiculous to plan for. But it will make planning ever so slightly harder, and I love that. Node 42, explosive personality and the best defense. I get this, though I don't really care about it. The changes are pretty small. The best defense is not a huge deal. I do like that they're countering Falcon again, but yeah, just not a huge deal. And back to node 32, another thing I want to add, a lot of the counters for this node used to previously be used on the buffet node that comes after it, like Warlock and Magneto. So I do really quite like that, and Killmonger, not a Killmonger, Omega Red as well. And it's countering 3 of these that used to be used on the mini, so that will definitely make it more interesting for planning. Sorry for getting sidetracked, I just thought that was important to mention. And then, over here, node 2, this is adding debuff immune and force of will. Love this. This is going to remove Falcon as an option for Ebb and Flow knockdown, which is going to force you to actually have to think about knockdown again. For nodes like Hitmonkey here, normally you would be able to just completely shut it off with Falcon, never have a worry. Same with, using champions like Archangel Magneto. I like that they're countering that. I also love the debuff immune here. That's countering Apocalypse, Omega Red, a lot of champions that you would generally see here. So I'm loving that. Loving this change. I think this change is absolutely flawless. Really love this change. Node 12, I don't like this. Removing Power Alternator for Bubble Shield. All Bubble Shield is going to do here is force chip damage. Bubble Shield can be a really, really interesting node on a node like EMP Mod and Burden of Might that punishes you for dexing. That's what they did with node 24. I really like that. But on this, it's just going to be giving you chip damage with the Power Focus one. They're going to be throwing special ones that are hard to evade, so it's just going to be extra chip damage, and really not all that interesting. I get the idea here, but doing that is just boring, and it's just going to be more potions. And removing Power Alternator is also boring, because a lot of champions, like Doom, Magic, Corvus, will start getting used here that are going to absolutely tear this node up. Because Power Alternator is gone, and those champions rely on Special 2s, Special 3s, and stuff. So I'm not a fan of this. Node 16. Love this node. Again, Vivified and Brute Force I think is fantastic. These two nodes work great together. And I think Mysterio is going to be a real problem here. I'm really excited for this. Love this change. Node 31. I don't like the changes for Node 31 and 41. What this is going to be doing is just incentivizing a lot of people to just use Apocalypse here with the Disorients, get the Disorient immunity. And really just add chip damage. I really am not a fan of this. I don't like Disorients in general. I don't think they've done much interesting with them. I like the idea, but it's really just not interesting. And what this is going to do is just cause a lot of people to just use, Apocalypse here, who's a super meta attacker already, and is really not all that interesting. And the other thing this will do is, obviously, a lot of people here are going to be using the Ghost and Quake that, Gabam have been trying to counteract. So adding this does not make a whole lot of sense, and I'm not a big fan of this. It's not going to be anything interesting. It's not really going to be all that interesting to plan for. And yeah, I don't like that change. Now, what I want to say, there are some changes that I would like to see. One, I want them to remove True Focus. I overall think True Focus is positive overall, but it can definitely be better because True Focus is overall positive, but very flawed. I like that they're counteracting Quake and Ghost a little bit, although Ghost is certainly not too much. What I want for them to do is just literally put a node that says no Quake here, or no Ghost here for a node. Like, they remove Quake and Ghost for Hazard Shift, and Quake, if they remove Ghost off of Hazard Shift and boss nodes, and remove Quake off of, all of the nodes, I think that would be perfect. And no one would get caught in the crossfire. It would fit what they're trying to do. So you don't have champions like Mr. Negative and Tigra getting shafted here. I think that would be great. But instead they go for True Focus, which, again, overall positive, but it can be so much better. Very easily, so much better. And yeah, would love for that. And the second thing, we need a full map overhaul. And we need better tactics, because the map has been the same for so long. It is really just not all that interesting anymore. People are getting planning down to be like half an hour for perfect planning every time now. And it's super easy to plan for. There's not really a lot going on the map that is all that interesting. And I really hope they, add something interesting with a full overhaul for Alliance War soon. Because these small changes are not enough, especially when most of these changes aren't even positive to the game mode. And yeah, really not a fan of that. And the next thing, Season 28 overview for myself. First off, the overall stats. If you want to take a look at all this, you can feel free to take a look. A lot of Rogue fights and a lot of Doom fights mostly, and then some Falcon, some Magic, some Archangel, and a few of some other scattered. Overall, 101 and 1, with my only death being with G99. And yeah, a pretty good season, 101 and 1. Definitely nothing to complain about. So first off, in War 1, this war we had the 48 Nihilist fight that I ended up messing up a lot, and we used Source Up for a Node 25 Domino. I'm not a big fan of Source Up in Alliance War in general, especially as a 5-star due to how low her damage is, especially considering willpower. But 25 Domino is a fight that Source Up absolutely shuts down and just counters everything about it. And yeah, purely uneventful war except for the Annihilus, but since it's Doom, the fight going as poorly as it didn't end up mattering. And War 2. We got Horseman AA. This was my only Horseman AA war. We got a Mixmaster Nick Fury, a Power Slap Kingpin, an Encroaching Sassy, the general Horseman AA minis. Fairly uneventful war, pretty easy war as well, with using probably the two easiest attackers to use with AA and Horseman and Doom. Yeah. And then here we get a first OGA Bomb war versus a 53 Terex. Always love using OGA Bomb. And I want to discuss something, will come up again when I talk about Magic plus Purgatory, but yeah, the value of, using these things that are really hard to fit into war, like OGA Bomb plus Red Guardian and Magic plus Purgatory, I think it's worth it. Because, if you are able to extend that effort and plan for that, they are just absolutely amazing for the fights, and just completely shut it down and make it so easy that you have zero risk of dying, which is really great. So if you are able to fit it in without making a compromise or anything, it's definitely worth it, and it's definitely worth the extra effort to fit it in. Especially if it's a particularly risky fight, like Spite Domino with Magic plus Purgatory, or Weapon X on 53 that has a lot of things that can go wrong. It's definitely worth it to spend that extra time and plan these in, because without a doubt, if you can plan them in, they are the absolute best counter, absolute safest counter for the fights. War 4. This is actually the next war after I just had that talk, but yeah. Here we take Magic plus Purgatory against the Spike Domino. Purgatory gives Magic this extra ability accuracy, which does so much. This lets her Limbos trigger every time. This lets her Power Locks trigger every time. And this also makes her bleed immune, which is nice if you're running half suicides, which I did for these 3 Magic fights. And yeah, it's really nice to add a lot of extra tankiness to Magic with all those Limbo triggers, and it lets Magic take Domino. So Spite Domino here, really, really love using Magic plus Purgatory against Spite Domino, and I think this Purgatory synergy in general is really good for Magic. The other option you would generally be looking at here is a Magic plus Warlock to get Magic that extra attack with the Warlock synergy, and I think it comes down to 2 things. One, do you want to use Magic or Warlock on that Domino? Personally, I'm going to take Magic on that Domino over Warlock every single time. You can watch the video and see why. It has things that can go wrong with Warlock, whereas with Magic, there's basically nothing that can go wrong. And 2, I prefer the Purgatory synergy over the Warlock synergy. It's definitely going to depend on the fights you're taking, but if you're just taking path fights, which is what Magic, I think, is generally going to be used for now that she's only a 5-star and 6 stars in the main meta, it's definitely a better synergy to have that extra tankiness from Limbo than to have the extra damage, especially if you're running Suicides, with how Suicides and Boosts will scale with that extra attack. It'll feel more like an extra 25% rather than, an extra 50%. So I definitely prefer Purgatory for Magic. And then here we had our only death of the war against a Vigorous Assault Bishop. Super dumb. I should have used Rogue for the fights, and I also shouldn't have played as poorly as I did. But yeah, nothing to dwell on because we had a pretty good season regardless. For War 6, this is a war where I got to use Doom Magic, a pretty uneventful war, no fights that were super interesting here. But yeah, and the one thing that was happening in this war was a lot of lag, so I was definitely on edge for most of this war. Then to War 7, we had Doom Rogue Torch. This is the war where I took the Hazard Shift Nick Fury, and I got my revenge on Bishop. That Nick Fury fight was very, very close to dying. I got very lucky there. It's not too interesting of a fight, but I just played extremely poorly. And with Nick Fury being as punishing as he is, I got very lucky that I didn't die. In War 8, again, Doom, Rogue, and this is the first war I got Falcon back. We took a Hazard Shift MODOK in this war. And yeah, for War 9, I believe this is the fight where I took the 49 Weapon X. This is the war where I took the 49 Weapon X, I believe, with Red Hulk. I got comboed there, but thankfully Red Hulk is pretty tanky, so I only went down to just encourage range. It's not too threatening, but definitely was a bit scuffed of a fight. And then here's the second time I brought OG A-Bomb in for the 53 Weapon X. And yeah, as I said earlier, this is another example of a fight where I think it's absolutely worth fitting in. For the 53 Terax earlier, it's a fairly non-risky fight with a bunch of champions, so it's probably not worth fitting in OG A-Bomb for that Terax. But for this Weapon X, I think it's absolutely worth fitting in, because 53 Weapon X is definitely a risky fight with a lot of things that can go wrong. And OG A-Bomb ending the fight in like 30 seconds definitely prevents things from going wrong. Things went super poorly in this war, and I messed up the fight just about as bad as you possibly can, but I still managed to solo because OG A-Bomb does so extremely good for that fight. And then War 11. We had a 12-fight war here, nothing too interesting. This defense that we matched was super poor, so I just got a 12-fight war with a lot of Doom fights. And yeah, and for War 12, we had lost the P1, so kind of just gave up the Venom, and yeah, I don't know why I gave up the planning for this war, and I don't know why I brought this Venom, but yeah. Fairly uneventful war. I did take a 53 MODOK that was pretty scuffed, as goes the meme of previously when I've taken that in the past with Falcon, and yeah. Pretty boring war here, but yeah.